Hi, everyone, and welcome to Redesign Spotify's AI features in 15 minutes. My name is Samaya, and I'm the founder at UX Woman. I have about 9 years of UX expertise across startups, consulting, corporate, and most recently, I specialized in inclusive design for brands like Disney, Hulu, and Marvel, although inclusive design doesn't seem to be popular right now, but I will continue to do it in the work that I do every day because that's where I'd like to make an impact. And today I'm going to talk through redesigning Spotify in 15 minutes. So before we get right into it, I wanted to talk about some mindsets for rapid design ideation. The purpose of this session is to share ideas about topics around redesigning Spotify's AI features, find like-minded individuals within our UX Woman community whom you can collaborate with on UX projects, and come to a consensus on the most pressing problems and solutions right now in the UX world. For this session, it's going to be Spotify. And of course, we're all here to get a small taste of what is UX design and AI product design in particular. The purpose of this session is definitely not to start building solutions right away. While it's really fun to ideate and come up with a lot of ideas and have fun playing with our ideas, it takes a lot of time to validate and really truly develop ideas into a functioning feature or product that reaches a wide audience. And we would need additional design methods to validate these types of ideas that we're generating. So UX interviews, stakeholder interviews, more ideation sessions, focus groups, business model generation, monetization strategy, marketing strategy, all of that needs to be considered. And we really need to approach problems from an interdisciplinary approach. And I just wanted to start the session because I think a lot of beginners who are breaking into UX design or UX design career changers think that UX design is about making things pretty when, especially with the advent of AI, it's not going to be about that. About 80%, if not 90% of UX design work is actually gathering context and thinking through the strategy behind the screens rather than actually designing a screen and making a screen look really pretty. So that's about 20% of the work is the looks, the style, the color, the typography, placement, everything else is going on behind the scenes. And that's the real strategy. Now, we don't have time in 15 minutes to talk about everything about UX design and what you need to break into UX design, but I hope that you go on uxwoman.com and join our community. We have a Slack channel, we have a LinkedIn group, we have a Reddit group, and so you can join our communities and collaborate with us there directly. Here, what we're trying to do is really create really rough sketches and ideas based on AI trends we're seeing with different companies and different products right now. So our sketches are going to look more like the image on the left than the image on the right? We are really creating very bare bones, throwing paint on a canvas. The canvas is pretty much empty. And we're creating really basic patterns and shapes that eventually could be molded and shaped with a lot more work and due diligence into a finished product, like the painting that you see on the right. So again, we're in very bare bones stage. Think of us as trying to think about skeletons and muscles rather than the full-fledged product, which is a human being with, a face and movement. Right now, we're really doing everything behind the scenes. So just wanted to kind of get you in the right mind space to start ideating. With that, I also wanted to provide some context on Spotify itself and Spotify's AI features. So we need to really consider the business perspective and the user perspective when thinking about how we might redesign some of Spotify's AI features. Just to kind of give you a summary of what their AI features are currently, Spotify uses AI for their recommendations when they're trying to recommend playlists to you, when they're trying to recommend songs to you. They also have an AI playlist generator that you see right here in screenshots, and they also have an AI DJ. So that seems to be the scope or extent of their AI as far as we can see, and based on blogs and articles that come out about Spotify. And even though we're designing AI features, it's really, really important to gather human context first and foremost. And by that, I mean understanding both user needs and stakeholder needs. So let's start with the business perspective first. From a business perspective, we really need to understand how Spotify makes money. And they make money through ads revenues, ads-free subscription tiers to users, and of course, podcasts. And it's really interesting because while they make money on ads, Their ads revenue actually dried up during the pandemic when businesses weren't sure. There was a lot of uncertainty. There still is some uncertainty. The uncertainty has just continued, but the ads revenue really dried up for Spotify during the pandemic. And that actually encouraged the company to start investing in podcasts. They bought a lot of podcasts. Podcast ads started growing, and that was the start of their investment into the podcast world. In addition to, just investing in user engagement and their subscription model as well. And so when we're talking about our AI ideas and concepts to Spotify executives and senior stakeholders, we really need to keep growth in revenue and listener engagement as top of mind, because that's what's going to be top of mind for some of these stakeholders and executives. And we have to frame our ideas from that perspective and from those stakeholder goals. How does Spotify make its money? But we are also seeing that listener engagement coincides with increased revenues for Spotify, right? Because the more we can personalize the listening experience driven by AI, that could lead to increased user retention and increased music discovery. And that in turn helps artists on Spotify increase their reach to keep listeners engaged and active subscribers on the platform. So we have to also consider another element of Spotify's business, which is the artist and musician creator economy on Spotify and their licensing deals that they do with different entertainment companies. So if you're really wanting to get into designing for entertainment, you really need to start thinking about those types of business models as well. Content licensing, brand deals, ads, subscription models, and how that affects both creators and listeners on Spotify. And so now that finally brings us to the user perspective. How might we increase both personalization and music discovery within Spotify to keep users engaged and subscribed? So this just really requires this delicate balance between giving them access to music and content that they're already familiar with, which keeps them on the platform, also while expanding their horizons and giving them new music to engage with, right? So we want to make sure that our listeners are getting access to new genres of music, new podcasts, new musicians, new vibes, and that they're growing and expanding in their tastes, because if we serve too much of the same old, they might get bored, they might get disengaged. And this is the result from the AI Spotify playlist I put into the AI playlist feature. So I asked them to give me 2011 dance vibes, which is around when I went to college. I know I'm getting old. And then I didn't really quite like the edits. I wanted something more sultry. So I asked Spotify to give me some more sultry songs to my 2011 playlist, which it did. And I think it kind of hit the spot for me in terms of what I was going for. But I just wanted to show some screens to you before we started to design. Another thing to think about, which I don't think Spotify has really done well, is the virality, right? We are able to collaborate on playlists with our friends. Like, let's say we were at a party and we all wanted to dance to music, and we can all add in our own songs to this one playlist. So Spotify does a good job at starting that social aspect of music virality, but I think they haven't really gone all in on leveraging listener virality, because I think that could increase music discovery and trending music by 10x, and that could lead to a lot more engagement on the platform. And that just makes good business sense for the company. So as we ideate, I think a challenge to myself is to also think about the social aspects of songs going viral. How do songs go viral, right? You might be listening to something on the radio, your friend recommended something, you heard something at a party, you heard something at a dance class, but how else do you kind of discover music? Maybe it's a trending TikTok audio, maybe it's something you saw in a show on Netflix or a movie. So there's a lot of different ways to discover music, and how can we kind of bring what we're listening to in the real world when we're not on our phones into the world of Spotify? And I think that's a question to answer in this ideation session. Something else to consider is atomic design and Spotify AI templates. Keep in mind, especially when we're designing for AI, we're designing for uncertainty. As designers, as engineers, we don't have control over the outputs that AI gives us. We can give AI certain inputs, but the output, no clue. So I think there's something that, is to be said about, going back to the basics and going back to atomic design, where we might now as designers start to focus more at the molecular and organism level rather than creating full-fledged templates and pages, because why not let AI do that bit, right? Why not give AI the tools, the molecules and organisms in designs to kind of and then let AI prioritize what needs to be shown on the screen. So that's already kind of happening with, how AI organizes this list or this gallery of recommendations, right? AI has somehow figured out that this is how the list should be prioritized. But really what we as designers are doing is giving them the organism of one list item, and AI is doing the prioritizing. So we're giving that control away to AI. And as designers, we need to become less control freaky in the way that we design. We need to design more at an atomic level and almost give up some of that control to AI to actually create the template. If you're new to atomic design, this is a really great breakdown of what I'm talking about. So atoms are kind of like the buttons, the small elements that you see on a page. And this is a full-fledged page. This is a really old version of Instagram. Instagram, you can take it and turn it into a template, but there's also in that template multiple organisms that make up that template, right? So we're really thinking at the molecular and organism level when we're designing at this stage. So with that, I don't want to talk for too long because we have very little time to ideate. Let's go ahead and ideate. So let me pull up my FigJam and we can go ahead and get started. All right. So remember what we're considering, right? Increasing atomic level designs, organisms, molecules. We're thinking about virality. We're thinking about the user perspective and the stakeholder perspective. So really increasing personalization, but from a social perspective. So I wonder, Spotify already does shared accounts. My whole family is on one account. So I wonder if it could be interesting to kind of stock your family or your pod when it comes to the songs that they're listening to. So right now, Spotify does something like your top playlist whenever you enter the home page, right? They give you but especially with artists right now, so we're also trying to think of the artist and creator perspective. They're starting to do this, but they'll give you some new recommendations to listen to here, and they've curated it in really interesting ways. And these are just different playlists, right? So here's the headline for this playlist. Why not listen to 2011 Summer Vibes? Because you're really old. I'm not that old. I hope not. Okay. So here's one playlist. Oops. And here's another one. Maybe I'll move this around. So again, kind of starting with the bare bones structure of Spotify, but what if we could follow artists, right? And what if we could see what our favorite artists were listening to? So for example, I really like Rihanna, and I might want to know what Rihanna is listening to currently. And maybe Rihanna wants to promote her music, not that she needs to. She's really popular. But maybe this is also, maybe I'm listening to some of the more up and coming artists. So maybe there's a way of showing that these artists are tuned in to certain playlists as well, and that this is something that is like hot for them right now. I think getting into the creator influencer market could be interesting, especially if you're, I'm like a 0.1% listener for my Spotify Wrapped for, I believe it's Charlie XCX, the new rap album that came out last summer, Guilty Pleasure. And so it could be interesting to kind of stalk what some of your favorite artists are listening to and be like, oh, that's interesting that that's what he, she, or they are listening to. So I think that could be interesting. But it could also be what your family is really listening to, right? For road trips and things like that, we always collaborate on a family road trip. So does Spotify know that if I'm starting to listen to road trip vibes, that, here's something like all my dad and my mom and my sister are listening to at the moment. And so I can maybe add that into the playlist. So this is kind of giving that social element to it. But I think we could go further. I think this is just the beginning of it. But how do we start to create these viral AI generated playlists? You saw from the context that I provided that the AI feature was really clunky, right? It was like this chat GPT like texting space, and then it gave you the playlist, but you couldn't edit the playlist in real time. Either you were texting Spotify or you were in the playlist refining the playlist. So I would like to do both on the same screen. And I think Spotify could kind of get rid of the menu when they're doing the AI playlist and just give us like a voice generated button so we can speak about what we want. And so this, we're telling the AI what we want here and speaking, like pressing record, I guess you could say. Um, and maybe AI is like listening to us and generating some text. Oh, so you wanted a 2011 sultry playlist, something like that. So this is where AI is sort of responding to us, and being like, is this what you wanted? And like we're kind of seeing our output, like AI kind of processing our output here, in text. And then maybe here's the playlist, right? So now we have these little elements, these atomic elements, molecular elements. I don't know why this is all blue. Let me change it. Of each music element or each list element. So here's that list element. And actually it could be kind of fun to drag and drop list elements. So I know they'd have like the plus or minus, add it in, but also like how do you reprioritize things, right? If you wanted to. So that could be interesting. So I think this makes it more engaging, the AI playlist feature, where you're able to give AI the feedback in real time. Wait, I wanted 2011, but actually now I want 2011 sultry. Oh, actually I want 2011 sultry, but add in, a little bit of Christina Aguilera. I don't know. So we could ask for really interesting requests and keep adding to our requests and watch Spotify change things up, as we do it. And we can see like a history of what we were asking them. I think texting is a little clunky. I think when you're in a music setting or thinking about music, you're ideating on the spot. You're like, play me that thing. And it's really just too much to text Spotify. Play me Bob Dylan, right? Play me this really long song title. And I think that's why moving to a more audio-based element could be more interesting. But that's just me, because then you're able to do both, give the playlist feedback and watch the playlist change in real time. And I think I like that element. What else can we do with Spotify? So I'm really trying to get more into the virality element. So when you think about going to a concert, or a friend shares music, or you hear something on TikTok, how does Spotify leverage that kind of virality to get people into the app? I don't know if I have a good answer for this just yet, but this is just something I hope you'll think about as well, when you're redesigning Spotify's AI features. Let's see. Maybe it could be live streams, right? So what if there were live streams? And I don't know how many people would tune into live streams. That's the thing. Or like radios. Spotify hasn't really played with radio features. And I think it would be really interesting to tune into live radio hits. So this could be like tune in live now, and there could be a special icon for like a radio live tune session, or a live radio session. So I wonder if Spotify went old school and started to kind of emphasize radio live streaming sessions, right? Netflix is currently doing that with live streaming sports and getting into the sports market. Can Spotify do that with radio stuff? Can Spotify do that with live concerts, right? Ooh, that gave me an idea. Let's say there's a Taylor Swift concert going on in Philadelphia right now. And because there's a Taylor Swift concert, actually when Taylor Swift did come to Philadelphia, all the radios started playing her songs, like that whole weekend. But would there have been a way to live stream what was going on, and kind of hear her live streaming? Would she have, granted Spotify access to do that? Or maybe this is a paid feature, right? Because this is a concert and you're hearing her live. Let's see, you would have to, we'll put like a marker that you'd have to pay to hear the live stream version of Taylor Swift. And we'll make it red so that you have to pay. And I think that could be interesting to kind of tune into viral elements. And that also gives, musicians a chance to earn revenue as well. So maybe it's not, more on a macro level, like large artists like Taylor Swift, but also on a micro level, tuning in at the local level to local Philadelphia musicians could also be interesting. And so maybe there's like the macro level, the big artists, but there's also this chance for new artists or up and coming artists to be discovered. So let's take a look. And maybe they're deep. I don't know about the prioritization, right? So depending on how the AI perceives you and your personal interests, either, local artists might be prioritized on your screen or more of the mainstream artists. So that's the beauty of designing at an organism level. You don't have to worry about the priority. AI will do that work for you. Based on AI's knowledge of that individual. And none of us as designers can really be personal with every single one of our users. But if we really focus on designing atoms and molecules and organisms, we give AI that control to reprioritize elements on the screen. So yeah, I think that's the extent of ideas I have right now in just 15 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully I will see you in our AI product design class. If you would like to go more in depth into AI product design, we have a 0 to 1 AI product design sprint class. You can also subscribe to our Substack where we give AI templates, job search templates, and you can stay tuned with new content.